Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Marshall Way Network. We are here with our 11th episode of Marshall Way Network TV. I'm really glad that you're here. We are actually in our dojo. I'm your host, Vishan Borich, and with me today is Ronald Leach, Hanshi, and we will be walking you through today a very special training. Today's topic is called Virtual Training Class, Body Framing for Powerful and More Effective Techniques. And Hanshi is going to be walking you through some of his knowledge, not only as a martial artist, but also as a doctor. He has a background in dentistry, but also in physical anatomy. He took a lot of anatomy and has a very experienced education on how the body works and how you can use it to generate more power and better techniques. So with that said, I'm going to introduce you here to Hanshi, and he's going to get started teaching you on this training class.
Okay, thank you. What we're going to do today is I'm going to take you back, and we're going to start on the very basics of karate. Now, there's a reason for this. I know you've all heard a story of the old master. Some student walks in, and here's the old master doing the first kata over 100 times. And there's some truth to that, because that master is studying and continuing to work with the basics. Now, I had a picture of a Leatherneck magazine, United States Marine Corps magazine, and I couldn't pull that picture up naturally, but a Leatherneck magazine, and underneath the bottom was Back to Basics. And when I was looking for this program, or this picture, I ran into the DI instructions, and the title was Back to Basics. That's what the Marine Corps is teaching, the basics, because when you get into a situation, you will fall back and you will use the techniques that you practice. If you practice sloppy techniques, you're going to use sloppy techniques on the street. If you use good techniques and sound techniques, you will use sound techniques on the street. Now, I want to start in the body relationships so that we can use this to vary the way you work from the way I work, because my body is shaped differently than yours. And that means that the stances and things need to be shaped differently. Now, I realize that some stances use an extremely low stance, and some systems use an extremely high stance. Well, I'm going to pick a middle of the road stance for you, and you can adjust it from there, either to your own style and or incorporate this into what you're using. Now, we're going to use the basis of our system, and I'm going to use a ruler over here, and I'm going to measure my body in front of you. All right, so that you know what I'm doing. I've already laid this out on the floor. But the way you do this is you go up to the wall, and you put a ruler out there, and you put that ruler here, and then you find out where that comes to. Well, on me, that comes to about 20 inches. That's what I have measured down here. That's my shoulder width. It's also the length of my arms with my finger extended. It's also the length of my upper thigh from the joint, the hip joint to the knee joint, and from the knee joint to the floor. Now, if I take this and I bring this chart up to you, and I'm going to use an anatomy chart over there. Let me get that. Let me show you what I'm talking about, because this distance here is equal. This distance here is equal to this distance here. You see that okay? Which is about the same as this distance, which is about the same as this distance. In other words, the forearm, the upper arm, the width of the shoulders, and the two legs are all about the same length. And that means you want to adjust your stance accordingly. Now, if you have a body that has very narrow shoulders and very long legs, you're going to have to adjust your stance accordingly. In other words, if you have very narrow shoulders and you try with long legs to do a stance that is your shoulder width, you're going to be very unstable. And you're going to be very weak in your stance because it's going to be much too high. So in this situation, you need to open up your stance slightly and increase the depth. Open being this way, depth being this way, width, length, okay? Now the other situation is where you've got very wide shoulders and shorter legs. And if you try to take those short legs and put them out as wide as you can and as deep as you can to reach that proportion, you're going to be in an extremely stretched position and you're not going to be stable. Or, matter of fact, you will be stable, but excessively stable, and it'll be difficult for you to move up. Okay? So what I'm going to do is go through the basic stance situation with you. Now, this is the width of my shoulder, the two lines here. Okay, and I'm going to put my feet to the outside of those two lines. The reason is I want my shoulders inside my stance. Okay, now I'm going to step forward, and this will be a front stance. Okay, and this front stance has some very specific things with it, but when I take my knee and I put it down here, if I can grab this ruler again, my stance is going to be equal on both sides where I put my knee in, and my knee is coming right up to the bottom, or to the back of the foot, and to just before the knee. This is a good test in order for you to see that if your stance is correct. Now, I've seen some of my students have their foot way out here, and their stance is way too low, and then they correct. And they correct it like this. Well, that gives you the wrong stance. The purpose here is to get in a correct stance, and the checker is not the ruler, but the checker is right here. Because if my elbow is up against my knee, my fingers should touch the inside of my heel. So the inside of my stance is the width of my shoulders and the width of the stance, putting my shoulders in between my feet. And that's important for stability. Then you rock forward, and when you rock forward, it puts the pressure on the front foot. Okay? This pressure on the front foot means that I can't see my toes when I do this stance. Now from the side, it's going to look, let's see if I can get that position here. From the side, it's going to look more like this. And notice that the front leg is almost vertical. The back leg is straight, and my hips are slightly rotated to the right. They're not quite square. Korean styles teach square. Some Korean styles, especially Shotokan, teaches the hips at an angle. Square here, angle here. The reason is when they do that punch, they use that hip in Shotokan to produce the power in the reverse punch. Okay? Now some common mistakes within this stance are this. Number one, if I have my stance here and I'm too narrow, okay, I'm very weak this way because it becomes a tight wire and I'm too narrow. Well, the only way to counter this is to do this. That back foot comes out to the side. All your weight's in the front and your back foot is pointed out. That's incorrect because you're ruining the body mechanics of the stance. And we're going to get into the upper body, and then I'm going to connect the two, and you'll see why. So it needs to be out, side, and deep. Okay, now this is 1.5 shoulders deep. That's the depth. If you do a 2 shoulder deep stance, you get into that very, very deep stance that some styles use. Okay, now the position of the back foot in the stance I'm using has, and ideally should, have the back foot parallel with this line, and the front foot is parallel with this line. So the back foot looks as if it points slightly out. And it is okay to let that back foot slide out a few degrees. The front foot, on the other hand, looks like it's slightly pointed inwards. And it's just an optical illusion because the inside of your foot is straight, the outside of your foot points this way, and it makes it look different. Okay, that's the front stance. Now we have a good, sound, solid front stance here. As we work, we're going to have to change into a back stance. Okay, I'm using the English words here because there are some people that are using Chinese, some people are using Korean, other people are using English words for it. But the back stance then is like this. All I have to do is rotate my back foot and I lean back. Notice that my shoulders still fit inside the stance, even though the edge of my stance is right on the ball of my foot here. And actually it's the ball of your feet that are determining the width of your stance, not your heels, not your toes, because you're going to have most of the pressure on the balls of your feet as you work. Okay, so it slides out. Then I move back slightly. This gives the back stance the proper shape. Now, if I do that from the side, I have my front stance, I rotate my back foot, and I move back. Okay, so that this leg, almost straight, not quite, but when I look down, I don't see my toes. My direction in this case is this way. Okay, and from the front, my direction is here. Okay, rocking back into that stance. Now, some of the common errors in this stance are, again, too narrow. Okay, and as long as it's narrow like this, you're in that same weak position because any pressure this way, and I'm gone. Okay. Another common error is as you move this foot, as you rotate this foot back here, and you slide back, you straighten that front knee. Now, if you straighten that front knee, I'm going to have Master Boric come in right here, right now, and show you what happens to a straight knee. Okay? If you're using that straight knee on the street, you're in major trouble. Major trouble. Okay? You're going to get it broken. Now, these are the two classical stances, the back stance and the front stance. All the rest of the stances, the horse stance, the cat stance, inverted, saidachi, seikodachi, all of these are kind of peripheral to this. They all change and they have specific reasons to change into the position that they are. We're not going to go into that, okay? We're going to work with these two stances, all right? Now, the relationship between the stances has been established this way because the stance is the same depth as the front stance. The back stance is the same depth as the front stance. When I do kata, if I go up the kata and front stances, and I go backwards in the kata and my back stances, because they are equal, I should come out exactly to the spot that I started on. Now, this is true of all the Japanese kata I have learned. It is true with all the weapons kata I have learned, with the exception of one kamakata. I found out that in that place, middle of the kata, if you turn left instead of right, you come out exactly on the same spot. Otherwise, you come up way up the front. Now somewhere, I think, somebody has mixed up that term and accepted it, but it does work out, okay? This is true of the Japanese kata. It is true of the Taekwondo kata of the Chang Han variety, that is the blue cottage. Those, Chaji Dagundo, Poen Gebek Wyam, all of the top, all of the kata in the original Taekwondo system. And in General Che's book, it says all kata must stop and start at the same point. And every one of those 24 katas, does that. And every Japanese kata I have learned in Shorin-ryu, Shirite, and Kyushuken-kai, every one of those katas comes back to the same spot. Now, this may not be true in sport karate, but in traditional systems, this is true. You want to flip that page for me? My notes. I've got some notes up here in front because I tend to get off topic, and I tend to go off on a tangent, and then when I come back, I leave something out. Now, what we're going to talk about next, we've talked a lot about the lower body. What we're going to talk about next is the upper body. Okay, and we're going to talk about 3 blocks: low block, middle block, high block. Okay, and I'm going to, in our system, when we put down the basic methodology for our system, with only 3 exceptions, all our blocks are starting from here, and there is a specific reason for that. Okay, no matter what the block, by starting at your ear, whether you do a low block, whether you do a middle section block, or whether you do a high block, it requires this fist to rotate. Now, because that fist rotates, it means that certain muscles on the chart, certain muscles are going to come into effect. And I want to show you these muscles on the chart because they are important, and there are a lot of them. I'm not going to name off the ones in the lower arm. There are a whole ton of them in there that turn that arm and make the wrist work. But we have the biceps, the triceps, we have the pectoralis major, the pectoralis minor, the deltoid, we have the latissimus dorsi, and we have the trapezius. When you do rotation, every one of these muscles come into play. What that means is, because they're in play, that means your block is stronger because all the muscles are working together, okay? That's true in all 3 of the blocks, if they come from this position, okay? Now, I'm going to start on the low block, and I want to explain, let me explain something about a process that I have heard term as framing. I first ran across it, the Chinese system, and then Troy Rice and some of his people termed it framing, and I think framing is an excellent term for it. I'm going to have Master Orich come forward here, and I'm going to explain framing to you. Okay, get the good front stance. Now, framing comes off of the hip point. Where's your hip point? Right there's your hip points. And it's extremely important that that hip point be the point that you're considering. Because if you run a plane through the body, all the way down, all the way around, okay? All the way around that hip point, all the way down to the back, all the way to the front. Let's go to the side and let's show that same thing. Okay? Here's the hip point here. The knee is slightly outside the hip point. Okay, can you hold that for me? And it comes up to the shoulder, comes around to the back, all the way up. This is the plane we're dealing with in framing. Okay. Now that plane is extremely important because the elbow must end inside that hip point, give or take 2, maybe 3 inches, okay? Either inside or outside. But it cannot It cannot go further. The reason for this is it maintains the musculature. It keeps all the muscles in play that you need to hold it. Out here, we start to lose the pectoralis muscle. In here, it tightens the pectoralis muscle. It tightens the trapezius. You've got to feel it in your own body. You get up and you feel your muscles and you feel what tightens, okay? The elbow in all cases, the low block, the middle section block, and the high section block are going to be inside or right along that plane, either inside, maximum of 2 inches outside, okay? All right, now I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit to tell you something about the blocks in themselves is that if you must turn to open your opponent up, you don't move your hand. When you turn, you're going to move your body, okay? This makes sense? But you're going to reach a certain point in which your body can't turn anymore. If you must do that, and this is a point that Troy Rice brought up very, very well, is you simply move your body, okay? So if Master Boric will come in, and let's go to this side, and she does a punch, I punch, and I block here, okay? Now, if I need to turn that block out a little bit, I rotate my hips. If I need to move it more, I take a step, okay? I'm moving closer into her this way, and it's putting me in a different position to do different things. Now, if we do this on the other side of the arm, let's see right there, on the other side of the arm. She punches, and I do this. Yeah, I do the same high block, and I bring it up here. I'm going this way. If I do it here, now if I need that position closed off a little more, I move this way. And if I need more movement, I then move my stance. And you can see what this does to her body and the areas that are open to her. Notice this, and she's totally off balance now in that stance. Okay? All right. So let's go and let's do, first of all, let's do the low block, okay? Now the low section block, you can understand, all right? The low section block is going to come from here. I'm going to get up closer so you can see what I'm doing. The fist is turned towards the ear, all right? The other hand comes to the outside, all right? The block is going to always be on the inside. There's a reason for this, all right? The block, I'm going to take away this hand, is going to come down and sweep across that area. Notice right in here, it's going to sweep across that area that it is designed to protect. Below the level of the belt, a low block is non-functional. This requires foot blocking. If you think you can protect yourself by blocking to a low block and blocking the groin, you are going to have to do this. Master Boric will come in and she will show you the result of it. Here, boom. She's going to follow straight through with the block, okay? Now, if she does a low punch or a middle section kick, okay, let's do the kick, and she's coming up to this area here to kick, okay? I'm here, she kicks, I block. Now, there's something you can't see there, and I'm going to leave my hand right where it is. Look where my hand ended, okay? She didn't kick me. She ended up clear over here. Because of framing, I stopped this block at a specific point where my shoulder and my elbow are inside that frame plane, or mostly my elbow is in there. My hand is way inside Because if I bring my hand out to that point, my shoulder has passed that point and it becomes weaker. As I bring my shoulder out, and if you don't frame and you bring it out to here, thinking that you're going to be safer, you're in trouble. Now, if I do that to Master Borch, what's going to happen is she does that kick. I'm going to push her that way. She's going to turn 360 degrees and name me. Watch. And she did. All right? Nothing I could do about it. It was so fast. Nothing I could do about it. But if I stop her dead, one more time, on the block, I stop her dead. Now she's out of position. Okay? My hand has come back to the ready position, and bam, I've got it. Or I could grab that, or I could step in and throw any number of things. Okay? That's the low section block. The hand ends inside the knee, and you're never ever gonna get hit in this point. You won't. There's a vector going on here. Vectors are physics functions. Two pool balls come in the hip, they both go different ways. That's because one power comes in this way, another power comes in this way, and the third, or foot, is directed in the third direction. Okay? So I never get hit. The middle section block now is going to come from the same position, and this is, I'm going to term this an outer forearm. Some of you call this an inward forearm. Okay? I term it from the direction I'm going because I don't care what they see. It's what I see. And it starts exactly the same position. And it comes out here, and it forms that same block. Okay? That same fist position. Notice that this is inside my hip point. Notice this is slightly rotated to the outside. Okay? You'll come in from this side, and when she punches, just stay forward and put your hand out. Okay? When she punches, and because my hand is over the top and in, this stops her. This stops her from raising this hand. It controls it. Okay? I've stopped her dead. I've stopped my technique in one point. She stopped dead here. She can't punch me. She can go all the way around the world and come back, and she can't punch. Now, if I block her up here, it doesn't make any difference. If I block her here, it doesn't make any difference. If I block her clear out here, which is the least desirable for me, it still doesn't make any difference. I'm framed, and she can't hit me. Okay? That's the major point of framing. And framing is most important because it locks those muscles all together as you come out. That hand, when it came out here, lower arm twisted, upper arm, I named off all the muscles for you, the pectoralis major, minor, trapezius, latissimus dorsi, the triceps, the biceps, and all the muscles of the lower arm that are holding the hand. All of those are working in this block, but only if you put it towards your ear and rotate out. If you do it like this, you are pushing. I'll get into a problem with the high section block, but if you block, let's see, like this, here, and there's no rotation, you're just pushing this down, and you're pushing it down with your triceps. Your biceps are somewhat functional, but the rest, some of these other muscles back here, they're not coming into effect. And neither are my lower arm muscles because I'm not rotating, okay? It's that rotation that causes all of the muscles to work together and to function together. Okay, that is a middle section block. Now we're going to do a high section block, and that block starts from the same point. I'm going to back up just a little. It starts from here, And the blocking hand is going to shoot almost straight up. And it's going to rotate the fist around 180 degrees. Here. Okay? Here. Notice this stays framed. This is extremely important because that rotation, again, is pulling off or setting off all the muscles of this side of the body to use. Now, that backward motion here, backward motion here, and rotation back here, that means all my upper body muscles, almost all my upper body muscles are essentially functioning. And that makes for a good, strong block. Okay? Now, I have seen used in tournaments. I have seen in kata, and I've seen the low block come from here. Okay? Now I got a question. Do you want to block something from your face all the way up here, or do you want to block something from your face for here? Number one, this is faster. Okay? Number two, to get the arm up in position, I'm doing this. This we term a rising block. Okay? It rises up and then hits and turns. Okay? When it rises right here, it is extremely weak, extremely weak. So if you're shooting these blocks from that low position, or even worse, coming from the outside across, and I've seen that, and bringing this in this big sweeping arc across, you're pushing. Now, I'm going to do first the high block. Master Burge is going to punch to my chin, and I'm going to do the high block I just showed you as intended from the high position. Okay, ready? Notice, I step in on her. Notice where her hand is. Notice how exposed she is at this point. Notice how turned she is. If that arm here comes out, it's not going to hit anything. All right? Now I'm in an excellent position here to walk up, do a jiu-jitsu throw, and put her to the ground. All right? Now, this time, she's going to do that rising block. And she's going to bring it from that outside position. All right? And I'm going to punch. And I want you to watch what happens. Okay? Ready? Look, I defeat her. And I went like this. And I'm already locked into place. I've already beat her. And my hand hasn't even done the final rotation yet coming up. When she blocked from here, my hand came up slowly. It grazed her here, and it went right over her shoulder and will go straight to the chin. There is absolutely no power here. Come up. Come up fast. Hard. 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 I'm just sitting my hand here. And you can't get the thing off. Now, push your hands high. Just step forward. Push your hands high. And now, block. I can't stop that. I've had some of the least muscular students in our system, some of the least muscular students in our system, beat me with a high block. Full force punch, right at their chin, and they can counteract my high block. Okay? That's impressive. I can take some of the strongest students and some of the best trained, as Master Burge is, and I can defeat that rising block every time. This is something that if you do in your system, I guess you're stuck with it. But you, unfortunately, will do as you train. So if you've got to block something high and you always block it from here, you will always block it in that weakest position. If you always train from here, you will always block from here. Now, what here? You say this leaves so much open. Well, if I'm on the street, here is my fighting stance, okay? Now, if something comes in, we're training enough that if something comes in strong underneath my midsection, I don't even have to honor it, actually. They can kick me and I'm not going to get hurt. But I'm still in proper position to do that block, okay? If it comes below my belt, I'm going to use my legs, okay? Lots of different ways to use your legs, okay? All right, you're going to use anything below that belt, to the groin, to the hip, below the hip area, to the groin area here, and the crotch. I want to get that term straightened out. Everybody says this is the groin. This is not the groin. The groin is right here, okay? It is the connection between your upper body and your lower leg. And it has a host of nerves and things that you can strike in there, okay? And it's a very excellent point to strike at. We're not going to go into that today, okay? But this is the crotch, this is the groin. Oh, I already broke away from my notes and I forgot where I was. Okay, now we're talking about the rotation of the blocks. We're talking about we've talked about how the blocks should work. We've talked about how the stances should work and where the feet should go and why. Now, if we start putting these together, as I block, the hips are going to rotate into my block. What does that do? That adds the power of my legs. It adds the power of my abdomen. It adds the power of the muscles that are turning my body into these blocks. Low, middle, high. Those hip rotations then add the connection between the lower back, or between the back and the upper, the blocks and your legs. Okay, the hips are what actually make it function. Because now I want to change your thinking as you walk and as you block, because I don't want you to block with your arms. I don't want you to block with your leg. I want you to block with your hips. They come up here. Notice my legs are bent. I step out and I throw my hips into that block. Now this is a reverse block and I'm throwing my hips into it. If I step forward and come the other way, my hips go straighter, okay? The hips are slightly angled in our system. That leaves room for rotation this way, and it leaves room for rotation this way. The hips are the strength of your whole body. If you throw, you don't throw with your arms and legs, you throw with your hips, okay? Strength in the hips is the most important about combining the upper body and the lower body techniques. So if you've got a bad stance, you don't have hips. If you got a bad stance here, you don't have hips. It just doesn't work. The hips aren't rotating and the hips aren't functioning the proper way. Because the hips are so important, it is important too that you keep your eyes, your shoulders, and your eyes, your shoulders, and your eye function anatomy. Eyes, your shoulders, and your hips work in a smooth plane. So as I walk and I'm putting all this together, my foot comes in, my legs stay bent, and my foot comes out into a good stance. Okay? The reason I'm doing this is so that I don't pop up and down and up and down. I heard that you can practice this with someone in your dojo, but have them hold a finger out in front of you, and you concentrate on that finger. And you look and you keep your body level as you do these techniques. Then, stand there and try this, and watch that finger, and see how easy it is to lose track of it. You're bouncing, and your mind has to make up for that difference, and that just takes a split second. If you're in Abraham's tank, and you had a computer guided system that would guide your barrel. You don't have all of that. You just have your mind and your eyes connected. And if you're jumping up and down, if you're hopping up and down in your katas, if you're hopping up and down in your techniques, you don't have the same focus as you do when you keep those hips, eyes, shoulders all level, all at the same level. But you think of all your techniques from the hips. That's the most important part of your body, because slightly below that belly button, here's the hip points. And if you come across those two hip points, you're straight across, you know where you end up? About 2 inches below the belly button, and that is the center of gravity of the human body. And that is marked, on this skeleton. That's right there. You see that? You maybe can't see the point. Here. Slightly higher for women. There's 2 points there. I don't know if you can see those 2 points. Slightly lower for men. But notice, here's the hip crest. Clear up here. Okay? And that point, that center of the body, is slightly below the level of the belly button. And that is the center of your gravity. And that's why if you control the center of your gravity, you're controlling your body to a much better extent. Okay? Now, I have one last thing, and I want to talk about that foot. If I can have Master Borge come back in. And this is one of the biggest errors I see in the front stance. This is a good front stance. And now, put your arms straight out in front of you and lock. If I push on her, no matter how hard, how strong I am, I can't defeat her. Okay? She bends that back leg. Watch. Ready? She bent her arms because she was losing balance. You don't bend your arms. You just bend your back leg and watch. She can't do it. The arms become weaker because the body's going down and it's collapsing. You collapse over backwards this way. And that's why she loses. That's why she loses that stability. Therefore, that back leg needs to be straight. Okay? We talked about the front leg in the back stance needs to be bent. But in this case, this back leg needs to be straight. The reason is, and the reason this works is, and the reason framing works is, and the reason the hips work is this. It's much more difficult in forming this in physics or in physiology. But come in here and do a right front stance. Okay, from that side, left front stance. Okay. Now, when she punches, let's do the left front stance. Switch. I'll get on the other side of you. I can punch. Left punch. Okay. When she punches, the pressure hits here. It goes up through this elbow. It locks into the shoulder because this shoulder is locked into place. It goes down her spine, which is connected to her hips, and through the hip bones down, and technically all that power is absorbed into the floor. This is why framing works so well. Okay? I want to go into punching next. This is a very basic technique, and every system, one of the first things you learn. Now, some systems teach from here, some teach from here, and some teach from here. Okay? I'm going to make a proposition here to you. Do you think that this, coming out this far to strike its target, is faster than the shorter distance here? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Is that correct? So this is going to be faster than this. Okay? Now, one would think this, because it's higher, is going to be faster. And in fact is, It is not. Okay, let's use the back side of one of those charts again. And what I'm going to do is put my hands out here like this. Now, hold it a little here, come back a little bit. Okay, that's perfectly square. I'm going to hold my hands out here. And now if I punch, I just nail that target every time. Just a little bit. Just a little bit, right? So if I come from clear down here, clear up to here, or here to here, there's a difference in the time. But watch this. This is for you systems that use this real high locked-in position. Watch. Here are my hands. I lock up into the high position. You try this at home or try it in the dojo. You lock out here and you do this, straight out. Can you see the space? You can't. Well, let's change this just a little bit. Here. Okay? Lock it from here, lock it high, and watch. It's short. You see that space? It's that short. Okay? So coming up from here, if you're going to use this position, you have to realize that you have to be an inch or two closer to your opponent to even hit. Okay? If you're coming from here, I think you're in the best situation. If you're coming from here, you have to realize that you're using a longer distance of travel. Okay? So, as with most things, the middle of the road is probably the best area to be. Not deep stances, not narrow stances, but middle stances. This is what we've been teaching, middle stances. Okay? Middle of the road is better. And the same with the punching. Okay? That takes us to one further topic that I have in the basics is breathing. Okay? Now, most people breathe from their chest. And if I stand to the side, you see my chest go up and down. Okay? Watch a baby breathe. A baby breathes like this. Okay? There's something physiologically going on there. Now, if I could have that anatomical chart again, I'll show you what that is. And it's the anatomical, not the skeletal, the muscular, I'm sorry. They're both anatomical.
You want the other one?
Yeah, I think I do. We got a third chart over there. It's got nerves, arteries, veins, that sort of stuff. That brings up a whole new topic of points that are struck at. But right here, and it's located right in here, is a muscle that goes across here. That muscle is called the diaphragm. Okay? Now I'm going to bring this up closer, and I'm going to show you where it is. Right in here. Kind of below your ribs. Okay? Now what the diaphragm does is it pulls down. It sucks in air. It creates a negative pressure in the lungs, and it sucks in air. Well, if it sucks in air and there's a greater volume here, something has to happen with all the internal organs here. And the only way to work that out is to extend the stomach. Okay? It's that extension of the stomach that allows for a full breath. Now, when the breath is released, the diaphragm moves up and it acts as a pressure unit to put pressure on the air inside the lungs, and the air is forced back up the system and out. Okay? Now, it's important that when you breathe, that you use this. Now, you may think, well, if I stick my belly out, I'm in a lot more danger. And the fact is, you're not. Because as you ki, that ki should come not from hey. It doesn't come up from there. It doesn't say ki. It says and that ki is generated down in your viscera. That air is coming up against your vocal cords and it's pushing on your, when you get hit like that, what happens? That's the noise you make. Well, you're tightening your stomach as things go in. There's lots more that goes on, lots of intercostal muscles, other muscles involved in breathing. I'm just going to work just with the diaphragm because it makes it much easier to understand. So as the air is poured out, your stomach tightens, and there's that ki. Now, when you breathe in, you're breathing in, and that belly starts to go out. There's nothing that stops you as the belly goes out from tightening those same muscles. They're just as tight out as they are in. Okay? So that if you get kicked on the way out or the way in, because your stomach muscles are under control, your diaphragm is functioning the way it should. If you get hit right here, you're safe. If you're not doing the right thing and you get hit right here, something happens called losing your wind. You get the wind knocked out of you. How many of you have ever tried that? It feels like you're going to die. And just about the time you're sure you're going to die, the diaphragm, it's called fibrillation, the diaphragm is just kind of going like this all the time. And it's not working. But once you figure about the time you're going to die, your physiology takes over. And it goes, as you get that first wonderful breath. And then you let it all out. Okay? Now, I'll take this one step further because this is a way you can practice your breathing. It's good for you. It has no religious connotation whatsoever. Every major religion in the world meditates. Okay? Now, I'm going to stand as I do this so that you can see what happens. All right? And there is a type of breathing called
Qigong. Qigong,
right?
Qigong.
Qigong, okay. Qigong. And there's another one we use that's Kabuki and heck. The point is that as you bring your arms up in these, you are going to take that breath. Now, if you're sitting and you're in a meditative position, I'm going to do it like that. Okay, we're sitting here like this, and as I take that deep breath, my stomach muscles should come out. Okay, when I exhale, my stomach muscles come out. You should not be doing this. The stomach muscles are coming in, the lungs are filling, the shoulders are up, and nothing's working right. Because if you get here right now, those muscles are in a weak position, and you can have the wind knocked out of you. Okay? So in meditation, it's the same basic thing. Okay? As you breathe in, you're going to take that breath. Your stomach is going to go out. It's going to give room for your organs. It's going to allow the air to come in and then out. Pushing the air out. Tightening the belly, tightening the chest, letting those shoulders completely droop. So, now if you're not familiar with meditation, let me give you an easy way to do it, okay? Purpose of meditation is clear your mind, not think of anything. You're going to be in the middle of this, a fire truck goes by, you're going to hear the fire truck, you're going to think about a fire truck. What you do is you just let that fire truck pass through your mind and you go on your breathing, okay? Now, it's kind of easier said than done, but with practice, it becomes easier and easier. So what you do, you start without the breath, okay? And we're going to breathe in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to hold that for three, a count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to push the air out for a count of 7. And you don't really push the air out, you just let it, you just kind of let it roll out. There's no pressure at all. Your chest, your stomach, the diaphragm will all take care of the expelling of the air. And then when you get to the bottom of that, you hold it for a count of 3. So what it works out is 6, 3, 7, 3, 6, 3, 7. You never run out of air, okay? But it is that little, it allows for all the air to be, not all the air, but most of the air to be expelled from your body. So as you breathe, it is in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, hold, 2, 3, in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can repeat this as long as you want. You can do it in a sitting position like that. You can do it on pillows, and you can do it on a special stool. The important thing is that your back be straight. If your back is straight and your hips are actually elevated on a pillow or a stool, it takes the pressure off your legs, and it allows you to sit for a long period of time without anything going to sleep or without anything starting to ache or cramp. Okay, you're much more relaxed, but that back needs to be straight. That's the main thing I see wrong in my classes, is students have that. Okay, and I see them going like this, and I know their mind isn't clear. You can tell who's trying to clear the mind and who isn't. Okay, all right. That's about all I have for today. Thank you for listening to me. I will take any comments offline. If anybody wants to write in, let us know. And I'll turn it back over to Master Borch for a close.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing today's virtual training class. And for those of you that are watching this live, remember you can always comment down below if you have questions or anything that you'd like to talk about related to this topic. Please go ahead and type that in there, and we'll be sure to look at those and answer you. Our next class, or our next episode, I should say, is Sunday, October the 18th at noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And that one will be on a mindset of a martial artist, how to achieve anything in life. And there are some things that as martial artists that we have learned to do very well. And that's something I'd like to go over with you all. And we will have most of the council on for that one as well. So have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.